Well, hello everyone. You hear show right here. I talk about for the State of the Union address, and you have right here example right here of the president, and it's like this. As we know, is like to where who the next president is going to be. But you see right here, like I went ahead and do right here is example right here of the president of the United States of America, and it's that they were to be given a speech or some kind, such as to where to the American people about for talking about for future and then for climate change and as well as renewable fuels and then resources and stuff like that, like educational purposes, other source of information like that. But sometimes though that I do wonder about a lot of these debates that wonder to where why is it that they don't really talk too much about the stuff, too much about the future, that they just want to brag about the past or so, who could be doing a better job of doing this or that, other than thinking about as to where that the next 3 years or so into the future as to where what they are willing to do as for president. You run for president about the work that they could proceed as to where that knowing about for how that they're going to be able to handle the job, especially, and so that's just my concern as well, as to where for anybody who's run for president, is to where how they are willing to handle the job of like for how are they willing to make the changes for whenever that they need to be changed and how that they are going to be react to where if there's something that needs to be done for the country especially. But you see right here is that this right here is an example right here of like say like a president, and with this president right here that like thinking about is to where they will be giving a speech talking about the future, and if the year would be set as of January of 20 for next year or for 2018 or 2019, that just think about right here is that anything about what you call presidential elections, and then is anything about for like your State of the Union address, and like for once per year that the president will give a speech about something, and it could be like something about anything that's going on in the country necessarily, about wars that he's like for knowing about for what wars are under control, and then for what he's planning on doing, making sure the American people are safe, and for the country. And but so a lot of times that from all any debates that we may hear to where that people want to chit chat about something, and talk about who could be doing a better job of doing this or that if they are what you call elected, and then whenever they do win the election for a candidate, for any candidate you want to run, and for president or for Congress, or for secretary or Amendment A or something like that, and so that's just the thing for anybody who's going to be a candidate run for president. That we were to where that that if this person is want to run for president and they may not like what's going on in the country as of right now, so they're going to say whichever until that they get in the Oval Office. And if anybody were to where maybe the truth of the matter is that you could just go ahead and spend a couple of days in the Oval Office and see about if it's supposed to be a tough job, or do you have an idea for what you want to change. And so that's just the thing about is to where for any of these candidates, I just really think that they really just need to think about is to where that for who's been in the Oval Office, know exactly about what is going on, other than think about is to where that pointing the finger at the person who is already president. But then that's just the thing though, is to where that for State of the Union address, that if this is going to be the next year's State of the Union address and knowing about who the next president is going to be. But I just really think though that that for anybody who's going to be elected for president is to think about the country, the American people, not just think about as to where that this country is going to be run by is to where for what all I want. If there's a problem going on, I might just say that that president may say something like, I may just say that that's your problem. I got another responsibility that I got to take care of for the country. And I just really think, though, that yeah, that with anybody who's going to be president, to show the amount of support, nearly one, show at least 100% of your support for the country. Since you say for being president, being president, I guess you could say is more just like say other than being for parenting, or if it's anything about to where that if anybody who's like if you're going to be a principal of a school, is just think about the amount of things that you're in charge of. And for what you call this big job that talk about here is like the story right here, and I went ahead and drew this by pen right here as an example right here of a president. So I know most American children and anybody who's going to be registered voter, whenever they watch the president on on live TV or so, and whenever they watch the president, it seems like for almost every president, even presidents that we may not say, or yeah, that well, you did not, you did not vote for them on election day, but then on your hand too, that whenever they give a speech, that you would respect the fact about since they are president and the things that are going on in the country as of right now that maybe not everybody's very happy about. So that's just a thing that I see quite a bit of that, as to where whenever the president gives a State of the Union address, it seems like a lot of times that they let the president talk for at least an hour and 20 minutes at the most. And for knowing about, yeah, for who's going to be the 45th president, and just to think about as to where that anything that's going on in this country, and make it a safe country for all of our children and all the American families. And I just really think, though, that for anybody who's, I say, for anybody who's wanting to run for president, that why is it that seems like the people are fighting and pointing the finger at each other a lot of times? I'm like, I understand it, but I really just don't know what the main purpose about it, because really that we all, I guess we all know by now that those people who were president during the time, and then they're going to say a few number of things about him, such as nothing's going to happen. You've been president. Nothing's changed on this. What's going on out with that, Mr. President or Mrs. President? So that's just a thing that for if anybody will warrant toward it, between a manager and being president, you're like warrant toward that. We may think that it's all about managing a company, but if you're going to be a leader of a country, I guess you're going to have it or that having to get used to over 10,000 or over 10 over 30 million Americans, or so that other citizens that are going to be what you call counting on you to do something about the country, is to where that if we are going to say anything about what you call preventing terrorists, anything about national security, as well as for job creations, and for those who want to speak up about for who you think that the next president should be. And I know that if I claim to anybody that you look at the president, like during the time that Bill Clinton was president, as well as for George W. Bush, and just warn to her that whenever they give a speech, that it seems like that they want to whenever they make a speech about something, they want to serve to us like I am your president and I want to do something for everyone. And but then of course whenever other speeches that they may give, it's like, well, if they don't mention it at all, anything about this or that situation at the time, it seems like, well, does that mean that they don't care, or are they going to do something about it? Are they going to say, what do you have to say about that, Mr. President or Mrs. President? So if anybody will warrant toward it, for anything about what you call the president's rights, is that for the American people would maybe say is like, Mr. President, what do you got? What are you going to be doing about this or that? And so that's just a thing that you've heard that before, toward it, that for being president, that it's a big job. And I say, yeah, it is a big job, especially that if you got the Democrats and Republicans that they can't agree on everything, and so you're trying to pass a bill and trying to do something for quite a few of the American people, about 40,000 or so Americans that could be without health insurance, and maybe about 25 or so percent 25,000 or so of the American people could be without jobs, and maybe some of them that could be without homes. And so you're like, Warren, to where that, Mr. President, you got to do something about this, Mr. President. The American people are counting on you for this country, just to be able to run it right, and just to say, it was like, what are you going to do? But still, that for anybody who's trying to run for president, yeah, the question mainly goes by, whenever, if you are going to be elected president, the top priorities for what you're planning on doing whenever you do serve, run for president. And I do warn to her that for the best working hardship for the American people, I don't know why people don't think about this to her. If this person's going to be elected for president, why is it that they start bringing up, you know, statements such as, for somebody who's already been president, they didn't do a very good job of whenever they were president. So you're going to have, over 30 years or so of a president, and say if they are in office or if they are out of office, that you're going to have a candidate who's want to run for president, and thinking about is to her, they basically, the first thing they may state is to her that whenever I'm president, I am going to do a better job compared to this president who served nearly 15 years ago. And so that's just the thing, that for anybody who, any president, any candidate who's going to want to serve for president, in the White House, that I do warn to her that, why is it that they kind of, and I know that for any candidate who's run for president, that seems like that they got that habit if they want to start talking about to where that those people, those leaders who have already been president, and then that they didn't do a very good job, so whenever I'm president, I'll be able to do a better job. It seems like from the past 12 years or so that I've seen that. I don't know why that they don't really just stick about as to where if one of them is going to be elected for president, what are they going to do? How are they going to be willing to handle about taking on the job of commander-in-chief and be able to do something about this country? Do something about, for our national security. A lot of people are not very happy because they are losing their jobs, and our, people, where our country could be at risk or something like that. And so I wonder to where that, why is it that that a lot of these candidates that keep talking about to where that whoever that served as president from a long time ago, making them look like that they didn't do a very good job. I don't know why you were president. So that's just a thing that for anybody say, yeah, well, you go ahead and spend a couple of days in the Oval Office, and we'll see about what you're going to say after about maybe 3 weeks after you get out of the Oval Office, and you'll tell me about what's going on. So if anybody wanted to work, if that's the whole truth of the matter, you spend 3 weeks in the Oval Office, and you'll see about the important, I usually call it the big picture, but I guess the full story, if you want to call it like the full story about what's going on in the Oval Office, that why something was not taken care of right away. This president could have done a better job. And just think about his tour, like for President Obama. And I know that, like with anybody, that, for anybody like President Obama, that, you're like Warren Tour, that, after that they are president for 7 years. And we weren't to where that it kind of goes by the question to where that we would think that 7 years is long enough to take care of a lot of things that we promised. And I could probably say that, maybe not everything, but still that, for the things that they did during the time that they were president. So I guess you could say that a commander-in-chief that I guess that cannot be a lead commander-in-chief forever. So it's not like this tour that they've been in that they ran they served they were for whenever they, by the time they were elected, and then they served for president for, let's just say that if they were in office for about 12 years, and then until it's like say about to where that for anybody who's going to be running for president, they tell you the top important jobs, the top important responsibility about the job. the top important responsibility about the job especially is toward being commander-in-chief. Just not to think about just yourself and your own family, and as well as, this is what I want to do. Make a plan. Make a list and check it twice, whichever it is. To think about the American people, think about this country, and then if you're going to be elected for president, is to where it's like for how much willingness that you're willing to put in the job. So if anybody wonders as toward it, yeah, that whenever you are going to be president, that people are going to be counting on you just to be able to take care of the matters that go on in the country. And so next 2 years from now, I would probably say that for whoever that's going to be elected for our next president is just to think about is the things that we would like to hear about, especially given for the State of the Union address, is to where that for whoever that's going to be our next president, is it for whatever that they want to speak about so far as our country and for where our country is going, and for what they are willing to do about changing, and it's like anything about trying their hardest just to be able to anything about for what they studied, and then for being president, this is what I'm planning on doing, and then this is nobody should have to deal with this, or like, so that's just a thing that for any president, that there may be some things about the job that maybe they don't like 100% of the time either, but just think about it toward it, that whenever you're going to be in the White House, I'm sure that for any candidate who's going to be running for president, that that they may have to you clean up, and as well as you fix any matters that could have gone on inside the White House for the past 3 years. And so just think about it toward if anybody say that, well, anybody who's going to be running the White House or living in the White House, or if it's going to be, say, one is, say, to take a job of supporting the White House, and you're like Warren Tour, that it may be what you call known as the richest houses or so here in the United States, and then you want to have what you call all the room that you want or so, but still that for think about the American people as to where that between being a manager and then being being president, that a manager, I'm sure they probably say that you are basically in charge of a number of things if you're going to be manager, but then of course it's like really that stuff that needs to be worked out, and as well as for other people who are counting on you just to be able to handle the job properly. And if we're only talking about maybe 300 people or so out of a business compared to the whole country, and then that's just the thing that for anybody to say we really need a president that's going to show 100% of their support for the American people. Anything that's going on in this country, not just think about us to pointing the finger about the person who is already president, person who's been president for over 4 years, if they ran for 2 terms, or if they what you call it, they were elected and they ran for 1 term, and you're like Warren Tour about that, about anybody who's going to be president. That just think about it, Tour. By the year 2018, what do we think that this country could be about, for better, for so far as for job creations, and for those immigrants, like for safety of gun control, and other reasons too. And I do warn to where if anybody warrant to where, well, that right, nearly 18% of some of those American people, maybe 25% of them, would maybe say that we are waiting for a white president. We're getting tired of an African American president, whichever, but still that whoever that's going to be president, it seems like that they're always going to give a tease about something. I'm like, ever since I've been a registered voter, you're going to have a candidate who they're going to be talking about. They're going to be bragging about them, such as that they only have a GED, they were homeschooled for 5 years, whichever it is. Come on now, respect them for being president. But anyway, but talk about it here, like job creations, and if anybody warrants us toward it, that have we had a president? And I'm like Warren Tour that I would expect to see for the next year's State of the Union address, or by the year 2018 State of the Union address, is to talk about those students who are still paying off their loans and as well as managing a credit card ordeal, like for any amounts that were charged on a credit card or any account. And if anybody warns us toward it, how come the president don't really talk too much about online accounts? Since online has been what you call our, national, what you call, social media. Like if for almost everybody, almost every American, every almost every American is going to have an online account. We warn toward the safety about the internet, about the online, the World Wide Web. Why is it that they don't really talk? And I know, like for President Obama, and I would give support for him about credit for him also as to for what he talked about the internet. But sometimes you have some of these presidents that don't talk too much about about the internet and about the safety about the internet, as well as for those any children or anybody that it's going to be what you call taking care of the bills at home, is to where the safety of the internet and as well as with the credit cards and student loan repayments. And that is a responsibility, and I'm sure they say that takes on to where the children and then as well as the source of education. But about the president though, it's like the speech that likely he can give is to where that you all still got a lot more work to do, but just think about it, to where for me being president, that or they may ask us to where are you going to be able to lower deductions for tax rates, and that they may talk about is to where are you going to allow it to where that some of those students will be given a grace period. Like talk about for grace periods, as well as for lower interest. It's like that they are getting frustrated, Mr. President, over how much interest they are charged, especially on a student loan repayment, just to be able to go to school and get a good education and get a good paying job. Where are those jobs, Mr. President? We don't see them. So that's just a thing that for being president, how much pressure and for how much willingness is a commander-in-chief willing to put in a source of for being for president of the United States. And I would expect to hear a lot of this stuff by the year 2018. By the year 2018, I expect to hear about what the president has to say about higher education, about those who are having to manage, you say, online accounts. If you've gotten an online account, just to check it out, or maybe if there's any purpose that you need it for financial aid reasons. The other one could be is like about our national security, especially on the internet, especially emails. Emails about what, Mr. President, that nowadays that we have even doctors are using the email servers, and as well as we even have job offers that are going to be using the email servers. But then we are afraid that other people, what you call hackers or so, that could be what you call getting in the systems without our authorization, just to be able to have access to any any files on record that it could be personal as well. And so, what's the best suggestion for what you had to do with it and about the safety of our children? And the next set of questions could be related to about taxes as well. That if we all believe that maybe we are being charged too much on our taxes, it's like, and as well as that for that, the next set of questions could be as to where about climate change as well. That besides coal, I'm like, if we're talking about other source of renewable energy as well, but for anything about, say, for Mr. President, what do you have to say about that? And so that's just a thing that for being president, I'm sure, like with anybody, if it's going to be man or woman, that just think about is toward it for being president, that you may think about is toward it somebody that may want to step up and say that this is what they want to do whenever they are president, and by the time that they get up there in the White House, and it's possible they may not be able to change everything, but a few things that may have changed as well. But anyway, talk about the future. It's talking about the future, though, and that's the things that I really expect to see about is toward our next commander-in-chief. By the year 2018, what do you have to say to those students, to those parents and their children about safety, if it's going to be gun control or if it's going to be anything about as to where that maybe the cost of educational expenses, that students, parents and students are going to be worried that they are not going to be able to afford to pay for any anything about health insurance, making sure all the kids are protected for their health insurance plans, and a few other statements that maybe I could give as well. I could maybe think of a couple more, other than like for our national security. Our national security is, of course, another important agenda also. But really, just to think about is to where, Mr. President, that there's a lot of us, a lot of children that are using our, the online, the World Wide Web every day. They're on there 7 days a week, even from our mobile devices. That, what you had to say about that is to where if they are going to be on the internet nearly 24 or maybe 17 hours a day or something like that, 7 days a week, what chances are that they would get a job for what they do? It's like to where if they're going to maybe be talking to clients, to other businesses, if they're going to maybe be in conference meetings. So I wanted to where that, most of us nowadays have a cell phone. I'm like, if anybody say want to raise their hands and say that I have a cell phone. But my question is like, what type of job do you think that maybe I could get if I'm going to be using my cell phone as like anything such as communication sort of resources? So nowadays that they got these even mobile amps, Mr. President, but people more likely they probably have few hours or so of the proper training that they need just to be able to get a good paying job. But nowadays it's like that those jobs are not out there. What are you going to do about it, Mr. President? Nowadays that even children who are going to be at least 15 years old, who are going to be having a phone, their own cell phone, or they're going to have a mobile phone, a smartphone. I'm sure most children nowadays even have a smartphone by the year 2018. One to where maybe one small enough to fit in a pocket or so, and maybe to display a good, perfectly conditioned, digitalized school ID or something. And Mr. President, what do you have to say about that? About is to where that a lot of these children are concerned about is to where that they are worried that maybe that if they fail the test, they're not going to get the job. And so that's just a thing that for any president, give a State of the Union address. There's something to think about for the next 3 years into the future. What do you have to say about these speeches? And for whoever that's going to be elected for our next president, just think about it as to where that whenever you're going to be president, for anybody who's going to be elected for commander-in-chief, is to think about is to where being president is not just thinking about yourself. It's thinking about the American people in our country. And then for anything that needs to go on to proceed, like for anything about you, for how you're willing to run the country as well. But anyway, but that's my statement right there, is that I keep wondering to where that President Obama gave a speech, I think it was back in 2011, about the source of education and then job creations. And I think, if I can remember right, that President Bush that did about the same thing, talking about cure for diseases. And I do warn to her about these presidents that if it's stem cell research, Mr. President, you need to do something. Please, can I ask you about what are you going to be doing about the cure for any diseases such as cancer, and as well as any other sorts of diseases, AIDS or HIV, or any source of a disorder and diseases, as well as anything about what you call for illnesses. And so you're like Warren, to where the nowadays for the cure for medicines nowadays for the health department is to where that if anybody that's like say that if we're going to have a group of students, do you think that they deserve credit just for spending nearly 25 or so thousand hours or so in a medical lab just to discover a cure for a certain disease, such as if it's going to be smallpox, or if it's going to be anything about AIDS, or if it's going to be anything about cancer, and for cancer research. So that's just another thing about Mr. President. It's like you have these students who are going to be like, say, they believe that they did not get 100% credit over their invention, over their research. So, Mr. President, would you please show more support for whenever you are going to be president, as to where anything that giving each American children, each American citizen credit for what they do. So that's the way I think about it, is to where that I do expect to see for the next 2 years from now, since I've been a registered voter, is to start talking about giving each person credit for what they do, as I say, for a hardworking person, for parenting, and as well as for anybody who's going to be, which God, for any, the amount of support that they give, to the children and for the grandchildren. So, Mr. President, instead of pointing the finger at this person or at that person and making fun of them and calling them names, you ought to start thinking about as to how much support you are willing to give to the American people. And for this president right here, like if it's going to be a man or a woman, for the next year's State of the Union address for 2017, and think about as to what I expect for them to talk about whenever they are going to be elected for president. And I do worry to where a few things that they have talked about, maybe a few things that they have not talked about either. And you're like worried to where and I know that for almost every president, but I would say at least every year or every 2 years or so, they ought to start talking about medicines. Nowadays with the internet, they should start talking about medicines and renewable energy as well. Talk about the future. Quit talking about the past. Quit talking about the whole matter about, and I know like with anybody that, especially President Obama, with Barack Obama, that, since, he may have been what you call the first African-American president, but just think about it, as this next president that we could get, that they may say is toward it, maybe that, they could only maybe have a GED, or maybe their GPA score could have been only, would say, less than perfect. But to think about it, to where that anybody who's going to be running for president, for how much hard work that you're willing to serve for the country, and for you being commander in chief, and how much hard work are you willing to put to help and support the American people and anything that needs to be done. And so that's just the thing about running a White House. That running a White House is not all about is toward it. You look what I got, yeah, yeah, yeah. Look what I got, yeah, yeah, yeah. Like, well, you ought to think about is toward about our future too, about what you're willing to put forth about being commander in chief. But anyway, thanks for watching, everyone. And I just want to go ahead and talk about this, about the State of the Union address, and for anybody who's going to be running for commander in chief by the year 2018, that by summer 2018. And I also look at that as like to where that for July of 2018, and I know that that'll be about 2 years away. But I also want to mention is to where that the type of, if you want to call it like that, the marks to our country, the United States of America, that what makes this country special in a lot of ways. And I just really think that, if it's going to be about the freedom or job creation, or about how much that we are willing to stand up to, we're making this country safer, better for the future. But anyway, thanks for watching, everyone. And talk about right here, the president were to be giving a speech, and for like any elections, it's like that make your voice be heard, for the American people. Like for anybody to say that, yeah, that for anybody who really knows, like if you really care to hear the person's voice, but still that anything that you want to say about what you think that you would like to see about, for how for your chance to speak up about who should be elected our next president. So that's just a thing that with anybody that's learned toward it, if we've had a president, that may say that maybe not all the problems, of course, are all the president's problems, but still he needs to step forward and see about, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go and try to fix this, or I'm going to do my best to fix this or fix that. But anyway, thanks for watching, everyone, and have a great day.